G'day, Tragic here, and welcome to the very last snake of the set. And I asked for you guys what you'd like to do, and you guys said blue. So we're doing a blue snake, and we're going to start off by remasking it.
I don't understand why we only try ideas once.
Yeah, so we're going to try masking again. And this time I went and bought this thing called Crazy Joe's Thinking Putty or something. Crazy Aaron's Thinking Putty. The particular putty I'm using is called Mini Scented Thinking Putty. Now I don't know if this is actually the good stuff to use. I got some silly putty on order, but it's going to take like a month to get here because I've got to send it out from America. But this one was just in the local toy store. This putty is formless, means that it holds its shape, but if you leave it still for like a couple of hours, it actually sort of droops and fills whatever shape it is. So it's actually just really viscous. So probably not the best thing, and it's a little sticky, so I thought, I think it might leave a residue. Now the next step was to airbrush the base coat. So I did the whole thing in Imperial Blue, which is a pretty dark blue, and then I dropped some white into it to lighten it up and sprayed it, but this time I didn't ever spray it from underneath. You can see that when I sprayed the Imperial Blue, it was all over. This time it's kind of only from the top, around the top. And then finally, I used an electric blue, raw, thinned down a little, and I sprayed that just on the very top of the head on a 30-degree angle facing the model from a single direction, just to give it a kind of highlight off one area. Now, to my joy, the putty didn't strip any of the paint off, so the putty came off really easily. It was a little difficult at first, and then I decided to just use a gigantic putty ball to pick up the rest of the putty, and then I just went stick and it just came off in one go. So pulling it off the model itself doesn't work. Just getting a big putty ball to stick it off worked fine. And I was really happy with the masking of the putty, but not the masking effect itself. I think it might just be better to just repaint a base coat of white or grey over the spray painted and just paint it again, rather than trying to mask it at all for these small fiddly things, because I couldn't get a very good edge. And even though I was pretty careful with putting the putty on, the putty actually stopped paint getting on the very edge of the snake's scaly skin, which proved a huge problem for me trying to get the model to look good, because I had to repaint all the edges, but because it was spray painted and everything was so smooth, it made these really stark edges, and I had to do lots of wash layers to try and bring it all together. So I think the putty experiment was a kind of pass-fail. I don't think I'm going to use it for small miniatures, but if I had to block out gigantic rocks sitting underneath a dragon, for example, then I might use it. Here I'm just reinforcing that graduation of colour from the light blue to the darker blue by using a blue-black wash, and I'm only painting this on the bottom coils. trying to repaint the lines at the very edges of the scales for the belly ended up being way too bright, so I had to use some of that darker wash on the edges of the belly to try and bring back that colour. It was a bit of a disaster caused by my masking experiments. Oh well. Here I'm using a blue wash called Algae. This is a slightly brighter wash than the blue-black, and I'm using this to paint the tops of the snake coils as well as the majority of the upper torso and head, leaving the darker blue-black in the crevices because I sort of washed the whole thing with that, as well as the pigment colour of the blue-black and the darker blue base coat on the bottom. Once again, I'm trying to connect the three different coloured snakes together by having a very similar, as close I can get, similar belly. So it's the same thing as last time. It's the bone white with overshadowing of sewer water, and then on top of that I place another thin coat of the bone white to lighten up the flap scales, and then a tiny bit of sewer water just in the cracks to reaffirm those cracks. This time for the eyes I'm using Mercerite Red, so it's a little dot of Mercerite Red followed by a tiny dot of Dead White, and then a watered down, just slightly watered down version of Mercerite Red, which actually combines with the wet white dot to create a slightly lighter version of that red. So it's, the hopeful effect is darkening the recesses, moving to white at the top of the eye. I'm using Dead White again here for the fangs, which is probably a mistake. Once again, I'm trying to connect the three different coloured snakes together by having a very similar, as close I can get, similar belly. So it's the same thing as last time. It's the bone white with overshadowing of sewer water, and then on top of that I place another thin coat of the bone white to lighten up the flap scales, and then a tiny bit of sewer water just in the cracks to reaffirm those cracks. Again, I'm painting undercoat black all over the base, but this time I'm watering it down a little bit because it was kind of thick and streaky last time, and I think it works a lot better, but I do have to do 2 coats, so I have to paint it, then let it dry, then paint it again. I feel that the belly scales are just a little too coloured, so I'm giving them a really light bunch of coats with that bone white again, really watered down but multiple coats, just trying to lighten it up and get it to be more pale like the others. Well, that's it, guys. That is the last snake done. Wasn't too happy with this one, to be honest, but I think I've learned a lot in the process of doing my first 3 models. I think I'm off to a pretty good start, and I'll see you guys next time.